Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you know, I can't tell you how
Oh, I gotta go sit there really quick.
that resident was up there. He was just, I reached out to him and he said, oh, I sent this and this and this, and they came here and we've had this conversation. Chief, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, you bet. So, yeah, it was very much appreciated.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. This is Captain Ward. He's over
Dave Kraft.
our crash.
Nice to see you.
He's just promoted and he's going to be getting with
Okay.
You have a great day.
So, in the two areas, you're talking Skyline and Taylor.
You guys let me know when you all feel like you're ready, and we'll get going. And just for your guys, there is access to the digital documents for all of this, so you don't feel like you need to take pictures of anything that we put up. There'll be a QR code that you'll be able to get access to everything that we put up here, including the statement that I'm going to provide.
You guys all right? Hold on one second, Chief.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're all good.
Helps if I turn this off.
We may be streaming, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
So your mic's hot.
Okay.
I'm good whenever you guys are.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Jake Suby, the Chief of Police for Ogden City. I know often like it spelled Jakesube. So wanted to have a follow-up press release on our officer-involved shooting that happened just a couple of days ago, back on the 24th. The officer-involved shooting occurred at 900 East and 1150 block of North block in Ogden here. While this is a difficult subject for everyone involved, I want to ensure the public is informed as the investigation progresses. So officers were dispatched to this location to assist with a keep the peace request. The request came from a female complainant seeking police presence while she retrieved belongings from the home. During the initial contact at the residence, the single officer on scene encountered the complainant's husband, who has been identified as Jeffrey Blue. He was confrontational and uncooperative when the officer engaged with him. So the officer requested backup and waited for a second officer to arrive on scene before proceeding any further. Once the second officer arrived, both of these officers followed the complainant into the home to help her gather her belongings. Inside, they were confronted by Mr. Blue, who displayed angry and confrontational behavior. During the interaction, Mr. Blue made a statement about getting a gun. He then abruptly turned further into the home where he retrieved what appeared to be a handgun. Faced with this critical situation, one officer discharged their duty weapon, striking Mr. Blue. Officers immediately summoned emergency medical services and provided first aid while awaiting for medical personnel to arrive. Despite their efforts, Mr. Blue succumbed to his injuries and died at the scene. The Weber County Critical Incident Investigation Team has determined that the item retrieved by Mr. Blue was a replica handgun designed to closely resemble a functioning firearm. While this finding clarifies the nature of the object, it does not diminish the complexity and gravity of the circumstance faced by the officer at that moment. Officers are often required to make life or death decisions in a matter of seconds, under immense stress and in dynamic, unpredictable situations. This incident highlights these significant challenges law enforcement face in safeguarding the public while ensuring their own safety and the safety of others. We recognize that these events deeply impact Mr. Blue's family, the loved ones of Mr. Blue, and our community. Our thoughts remain with those feeling the weight of this difficult circumstance. The entirety of this incident was captured on body-worn camera. This footage is a critical piece of evidence and remains in the custody of the Weber County Critical Incident Investigation Team. We will be releasing that at a later date in coordination with the investigations team. While we understand that the public has interest in this footage, maintaining the integrity of the investigation is critical and paramount at this point. The officers involved in this incident still remains on administrative leave, which is our standard protocol, and this again ensures the integrity of the investigation while also allowing the officer to focus on their mental health and wellness during this difficult time. Thank you for your patience and understanding as this investigation continues. We will provide further updates as appropriate and in coordination with the county investigations team. That is the culmination of my statement, but I will allow for some questions at this time. But please keep in mind, I may not be able to answer every question, or I may have to withhold some, or there just may be some answers I don't have because of this ongoing investigation that we are allowing to be done externally from us. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
So it's just one officer on
Yeah, one officer fired and one officer off on administrative leave.
Any idea how many rounds fired?
I don't have the exact details on that right now. I haven't been given that information from the investigations team.
And then obviously you're not new to policing, but you are the new chief. There are things, protocol you have to follow like another organization coming in and taking over the investigation. But as a new chief, are there any additional steps or trainings that you're going to be putting in place when something like this does happen?
Yeah, so we always have our own internal review of the circumstances surrounding any incident like this. The key is we need to make sure that not just the criminal side, which is what the critical investigation team is investigating. We're looking at our policies and procedures. Were those followed? How does that apply to what we're doing in our work? And then always in every situation, and not just an officer involved, but what can we learn from them? How do we get better and how do we grow from them?
Chief, describe to me the interaction with, you said it was a replica, so this was not a real gun.
Correct.
Describe to me the interaction where the shooting unfolded. So what did your officer describe?
Yeah, so I don't have those exact details at this point because we don't get into the weeds of that. We allow the investigation team to do all of that, and then as we move later into our internal, we'll gather that information for us. I do know that it happened rapidly, that it quickly escalated very, very quickly. It was not a long, drawn out and prolonged interaction. It happened abruptly, and the officer had to make a very, very quick decision. I do know that.
Tell me a little bit, when you look at this gun or this replica, when you have an officer who sees something like this come flashed at them, what are they seeing?
Yeah, it's hard to speculate, right? And I can't, and I don't want to speculate how an officer felt or believed. But as you can tell from looking at this picture, it's extremely difficult to tell if that's in somebody's hand, and you now have to make a decision based on the totality of circumstances. This is a confrontational encounter. Things like that are going through the officer's mind at the time that they then have to make what is the best decision for the safety of everybody involved, including the female who requested to keep the peace, the officers that are on scene, and then potentially any other bystanders that are there. So it is a difficult task, and it's complex. Officers are put in very difficult situations, and they have to make very difficult decisions, and they have to live with those decisions themselves, and that's why we really care about their well-being and how they take care of themselves after this, just as much as we have sympathy and feel horrible for the family that's involved in this. There is two sides to that as well, that both sides feel that ripple effect of kind of the fallout from it.
One thing I wanted to ask too, I mean, could this gun have fired? It looks like there's a battery, but that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the specifics of this. If this is, I don't want to speculate to what type of gun, right? You know, if it's an airsoft gun, a BB gun, a CO2 gun, and uses a battery. I don't know any of that at this point. The most I know right now is this is the firearm that Mr. Blue had in his possession at the time of the incident.
How old is Mr. Blue?
45.
Did he aim this weapon at
I-
the officer?
I don't have the full details on what happened in that exact moment, so I don't want to speculate to how it unfolded right there. But as we get further into this and we do release the body cam, which we will do, we've had some great success with the critical incident investigation team, where they really piece together the video, and we'll make sure that we do something similar so that you all have the facts that brought us to this conclusion.
Did you have any sort of history with Mr. Blue that would have elevated the concern for officers on scene?
We have responded to the residents numerous times over the last several years. I think since 2021, I think we've responded about 8 times. to that home. Again, varying different things from keep the pieces to neighborhood complaints of disturbances at the residence, things like that. Whether the officer there, both of the officers that responded knew about all of that at the time, I'm not sure if they're aware of that. However, we do and are aware that we have responded to this residence numerous times since 21.
Do you know in those incidents, was he physically confrontational with officers in any of them?
I don't know the details on that. I haven't been able to pull up each of those cases to determine that. That will be a part of all of our internal review of this as well, what the history is with those involved. We want to look at not just the moment that the incident occurred, but what happened leading up to the incident, because that's going to help us responding to future incidents that are similar. So right now I don't have the details of each of those specific events that we responded to.
Was there anybody else on the scene other than the suspect and the lady?
I am aware that there were a couple of kids at the home. I don't believe they were immediately present. I don't know the ages. I don't know any specifics about that, but I do know that there were other people inside of the home.
Can you say how many, 2, 3
I-
specifically?
I know that they have multiple kids, but I don't know how many were actually at the home at the time.
So these were Mr. Blue and the victim's children?
I can't confirm that either. I'm not sure the exact relation to the children to both of them.
Can you, Chief, just address the fact that somebody is taking the steps to have law enforcement there in a tense situation where they're trying to leave a domestic violence situation, and this is the result of that. Can you maybe just address, first of all, the courage it takes for somebody to bring law enforcement in to take that step, but also how do you reassure others that this isn't going to be their outcome?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. These are extremely difficult. Domestic violence related cases, keep the pieces are some of the most volatile and concerning, and not just for us, but for the families that are affected by this. It does take courage to get to this step and ask for help and ask law enforcement to stand by to help. We do this a lot. We respond to a lot of keep the pieces. I couldn't give you an exact number, but it is a significant amount. And the number that result in this outcome are probably less than 1%. This is a very rare circumstance. But that doesn't downplay the significance and the importance of us being there to make sure that the victims in domestic violence or those facing this type of home life have somebody there that can support them to get them what they need. It's tough. These are tough. Domestic violence is difficult. My heart pours out for the families that are affected by this, and in this specific case, to this family. We don't consider this a win by any stretch. Like, that is not the case. Our goal is to walk away and hope that in every keep the peace, we get the people the property that they need. They can go and go somewhere where they can be safe or feel safe. And we're going to make every effort to do that. And that's, unfortunately, this outcome did not result in that. But the vast majority, and I would say pretty much most do, 99.9% are going to result in at least a positive outcome in that moment.
This is the second, just a couple weeks here in Weber County that's ended this way. Are you seeing a spike in these types of calls because it is the holidays?
I couldn't speak to that. I haven't looked at that data to see if we have an increase in domestic violence related calls. I know anecdotally we have seen that in the past. When you surround holidays and families, it can often heighten those types of issues, but I couldn't speak to fact that is really happening right now, or if it's right now just happens to be an anomaly, or I don't have that data to tell you for sure.
Chief, can you, I don't know if you can speak on this, but was Mr. Allen threatening the life of the victim? Is that why you were there?
I don't have those details. I don't know all of the details that were led up to the officer going there for the keep the peace, or all the details about what conversations occurred with the officer prior to entering the home with the female. So I don't have information on that. I expect that if those conversations or information is out there, that we'll get it through the investigations team.
She was getting stuff from the house. Were they living together?
Yeah, so they both live in the home. They're married. They live in this home, and she was there. My understanding of the circumstances, she had left the night before due to some sort of disagreement, and came back this day with officers to just gather some items so that she could leave again for the night.
Chief, you were talking about, these are obviously split-second decisions these officers have to make. I mean, is it training-wise, if they see something that resembles this, are they advised to fire when because obviously that does look like a real gun.
Yeah, it's tough. We can't put ourselves in this officer's shoes in this circumstance, but the reality of it is when you are faced with what appears to be deadly force, you have to make the most appropriate action to protect you and the individuals that are on scene. And unfortunately, at times that does mean we have to follow through with deadly force to try to stop the threat. Sadly, in a lot of circumstances, there isn't time to have long conversations and try to reduce the stress that's occurring at the time, or transition to a different tool on the belt. Sometimes those circumstances are just not afforded to the officer, and they have to make the best decision in that moment, in a split second, in that complexity, and make that decision, again, to protect themselves and to protect the people that are on scene with them. In this case, the female who requested the keep the peace, and the potential children that were inside the home.
Chief, where does Ogden PD go from here? Do you have a team of people that'll sit down and watch the body camera and go through it and see if there's something that they can see that could be different next time, or ways to improve the response from your officers?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do our own internal review of this. We have what's called a Professional Standards Bureau. We have a lieutenant who oversees that bureau, and their whole role in this is to gather all the documents, the information, the body camera, eventually the investigation from the Weber County Critical Investigation Team. They're going to compile all of that, and then usually that is also coupled with our lieutenant over our training bureau who participates in that group, and then we oftentimes include a sergeant from our Major Crimes Investigations Bureau. So they're going to take all of that information from body camera to police reports to statements, and then make those determinations on what did we do, why did we do it, did what we did fall within policy and compliance of what we expect. And even if it did, are there still things we can learn? Are there things that we could do better? Could we do differently? In this case, I don't know that that's the case at all, but it is something we will do in every one of these circumstances. We do that down to the level of ones that don't result in deadly force. Uses of force that we investigate, we do something similar. We have our Professional Standards Bureau lieutenant review all of those for those types of things that we can find to improve. We're always wanting to improve. That is critical to our organization, and we'll, that's gonna carry forward, while I'm here as the chief. So.
Because this could have gone a lot different, as we saw in 2020. You lost Officer Lyde in the line of duty. So these quick, split-second decisions these guys have to make are amazing as what they do.
It's extremely difficult, and again, Officer Lyde, that was a domestic violence situation, and again, just points to the volatility of these types of cases and circumstances. And officers are thrust into these circumstances and doing the best they can in that situation to make sure everybody walks away. And unfortunately, in this situation, that didn't happen. But again, then the end result has to be that the family members and the female that requested the help and the officer do make it home that night. So,
Chief, you had mentioned that there have been several interactions with this man with police in the past, and again, I don't know if these officers, like you mentioned, had interacted with him before, but was it known whether he had firearms in that home, like other than this replica?
Yeah, I don't know that at this point. I haven't received any information that would be able to give you an answer to that. I'm not sure if the officers would have been aware of that, if there's something that they were aware of before they got to the scene. So I couldn't speak to that. I do know that the officer, when he first arrived alone, he realized the confrontational nature of Mr. Blue and did the right thing and waited for another officer to respond before he and the female entered the home and helped her gather her belongings. So clearly he had registered some concern, right, that he wasn't just going to march right in and try to address that. He wanted to make sure that everybody involved was safe and he had the right resources to try to do that. Any other questions?
Last one.
Yeah.
The outside investigation is still ongoing, but why invite us back here today for this press conference?
Yeah, great question. I think it's important. We in law enforcement need to be transparent and open with the community. They need to understand that we want to provide them the information. These things affect our community. They affect them. Whether you live in that neighborhood or you live 10 blocks away, it affects our community. And so it's important for me as the chief to get out here and convey what I can. When I did my initial release, at that time I really had very, very little information I could provide, to the point of being unable to even identify Mr. Blue. So it's important that I can get that information conveyed to the public, and that they can see that we do want to be transparent with them, and that there are reasons why we do withhold some information. That's important. That investigation that the Weber County Critical Incident Investigation Team is doing is vastly important, needs to be done on their own without our involvement, but it's still imperative upon us and our agency to make sure the community knows that we're not just the police and they're the community, we work together. So I want to give them that message so they know what we're doing and what's happening. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Take care.
Is there a way we could flash Mr. Blue's picture back up there?
If you guys wanna, this can't go out, but there's access to some digital resources.
Yeah, that-
we talked about today. If you wanna try to use this.
Yeah,